Here are 5 things that I wish I knew when I was starting my tropical style planting journey. I hope it's helpful for anyone out there thinking of doing the same. So this is what my garden looks like now when at the peak of its growth. That's the main border, and there's our patio area. This is where it started. So you can see we had to start from scratch in terms of planning, landscaping and planting. It's good for me to be reminded of this so that I can see how far the garden has come. So the first thing I wish I knew was the need to set realistic goals. Here's a basic plan of my garden, and here are some photos of the space that we were working with. Now I think in my head I thought as though I had a vast expanse of land that looked a little something like this, where I could plant every tree that my heart desired. I had no real idea of scale, but we'll talk a little bit about that later. I'd also watch YouTube and fall in love with channels such as this one, entitled Leafing Around. But this beautiful garden is based in Malaysia, where they can grow all of those stunning foliage plants outside, like philodendrons, anthuriums, alocasias, caladiums and so on. I was besotted with the plants, and I'd list their names in the hopes of acquiring them for my own garden. At that point, I didn't fully understand the idea of planting hardiness zones. I was just hoping for the best. Now I understand that I can still be inspired by channels like this, but more in relation to planting principles and design concepts as opposed to shopping lists for specific plants. It was at that point that I started to research plants that could grow in a cold climate, and one of the first YouTube channels that I stumbled across was a channel called Urban Tropical, a small London-based garden with conditions similar to mine. I loved how the grower had mixed tropical style plants with more hardy native plants. Joining Facebook groups like Simon Maybury's Tropical Style Gardening UK was also a game changer for me, as I could see what other gardeners nearby were growing. I then subscribed to some other UK-based YouTube channels. Their logos are displayed here. These channels became my go-tos in those early days. I soon realised that I wasn't actually trying to recreate a tropical forest. We don't have the consistent warm temperature or humidity for it, but what I was doing was adopting a tropical style of planting right here in my small little garden, and it could be achieved using plants that are hardy in the UK and that look quite exotic as well. I started to think more realistically about what I could achieve, and before I knew it, Tropiclaude was born. I particularly like this photograph because after taking it, it actually gave me the same satisfaction I was getting looking at the Malaysian gardens. I was getting those jungle vibes from my little border right here in Birmingham, UK. Number 2, small plants grow big. So as you can see in my jungle border, it's now become very congested, and one of my spring jobs will be thinning this border out and moving things around. I have a number of shrubs and trees in this border now. I have a tree fern, a Beauty of Palm, a Schefflera taiwaniana, rhododendron, swellenhensi, tetrapanax, cherry blossom tree, Indian bean tree, a Trachycarpus fortunei, and that's before I've got to any of the bamboos at the back. I planted small with most of these, and now 3 to 4 years in, they are competing for space. It's really important to bear that in mind when you're getting started. Number 3, evergreens for the backbone. Tropical style evergreens such as fatsias, hardy palms, hardy bamboos and spiky shrubs like cordylines and yucca form the spine of a tropical style garden, and they really help to make your garden interesting during the winter when all of the deciduous plants have died down. I wish I was more intentional about evergreen planting from the very start. That would have prevented periods of garden downtime and to make it a place I'm proud to visit all year round. Number 4, hardy plants are enough. Now, as you'll have seen on this channel, I do love a plant haul. And after you've bought the staple reliable plants, it's very tempting to become something of a plant collector and to fill your boots with rare and wonderful exotic plants that are usually expensive and more difficult to source. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if you don't mind taking risks, pushing boundaries and indulging once in a while. Take this Schefflera alpina for example. Looked great in its pot when I bought it, but when I got it in the ground it died almost instantly without rhyme or reason. Not a purchase I plan to repeat. Now, when you're getting started, there's no need to fill your garden with rare and tender plants in order to create a tropical style canvas. Tough, reliable and hardy plants are indeed enough. I'll put a link in the corner to a video with a few suggestions for you if you're not sure which ones to get. Number 5, losses are learning curves. Now, I've lost a plethora of plants over the last few years. I affectionately call this part of my garden the hospital corner. I've lost cordylines, palms, yuccas. I've had plants that have succumbed to aphids and other pests. Also had to sacrifice aesthetics from time to time in order to let nature take its course. The garden never fails to surprise me. I remember the very first time that I realised that cordylines, when they die, will generally reshoot again from the base, just as it did with this specimen here. It was such a great day when I realised it's not dead. Musa basjou, another tropical style garden staple, is another one that will surprise you when it dies. The main pseudostem may well succumb to winter, but it will send up some new pups for you. I've also had palms spear pull in the past, such as this Chimerops humilis, which spear pulled in the summer following a difficult winter. When that happens, it can be tempting to get rid of the plant altogether, but don't. Just wait a little while longer and it may well just bounce back, just like my Chimerops did. And if it doesn't bounce back, you've learnt a lesson, and on the bright side, you'll have more planting space for yet another specimen. I know I said 5, but I'm going to chuck a bonus one in, and that is that plant position matters. When I first started gardening, I was a little bit ad hoc, planting plants anywhere I liked, but as time's gone on, I've gotten better at layering. It's pretty easy really. I plant the taller plants at the back, and as I come towards the front, I plant the medium and shorter ones. Any plant that I want to be standout or a real focal point, I'll make sure it's in a position where it can be seen quite easily from the front. Something else that I wish I knew at the start is that you can use your pots as well in the borders in order to create those layers, so your more tender plants can remain in pots and they can easily be taken out again when the season starts to change. So just to summarise the 5 or 6 things that I wish I knew when I was beginning my tropical style planting journey. That number 1, remember to set realistic goals. 2, small plants do grow big. 3, evergreens make a great backbone for the garden. 4, hardy plants are enough. 5, losses are learning curves. And of course, planting position matters. Thanks for joining me on this one, everyone. I'd love to hear from you in the comments as to the things that you wish you knew at the start, and wishing you all a happy new year. See you on the next one.